Hi, it's Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. Okay, so for today's video, we're doing something we haven't done, or it's the start of a new part of a series, which I haven't told Andy or Kirk about, so this is brand new for them, so I like to spring things on them. So, we all know that there are certain songs that define the band, and these songs will be songs that define the generation, define the genre, and they will be always classed as classic metal songs, or greatest metal songs of all time. But the question is, are they actually the greatest metal songs of all time? Or are we looking at these songs in beer-goggled anthems? And what I mean by that is you have a few beers at night and you take a girl home and you think she's amazing, but actually you wake up the next morning and go, bloody hell, what the hell did I just do? And we're going to talk about these songs exactly the same way, because sometimes we think about when we first got exposed to these tracks and you remember them from your youth and go, these are amazing, but we're going to really break the track down. And we've got to start off with one of the biggest songs out there. And this is a song that may not be the biggest song as far as general commerciality of this particular band, but it is the one that if you ask fans of this band, they will say is probably one of their best. And we are, of course, talking about Metallica and Master of Puppets. So today we are going to break this track down and actually discuss whether or not this is as good as people think it is. And we're going to try and hopefully dissect this into a few different elements of whether the songwriting was there, the structure of the song, the riffs, the vocal performance of Mr. James Hetfield, and actually does it deserve its place as being one of the best metal songs of all time. And I believe we all do know this song. Andy, Kirk, we know Master of Puppets, yes?
Definitely.
Just a little bit.
I was worried that I wouldn't know any of these, to be honest. Not be out joining the conversation at all. But yeah, I have a good understanding and admiration of this song.
Now the question will be is obviously we could have easily picked something like Enter Sandman, which would have been a very commercial track to pick on, but just because it was their most well-known song, was it their greatest metal song? I think any metalhead would turn around and say Enter Sandman is not the greatest Metallica metal track. It would have been very easy to go and do something like Battery or One. There's a whole host of different ones that you could have picked off. Sent Anger, Frantic. No, I'm just kidding. we won't put those in there. But we're going to pick out a live performance, and the reason we're picking out the live performance is basically just because of YouTube copyright. It's a lot easier, and also in a lot of cases there are no music videos for these particular bands, etc., because of when these songs came out. So we're going back to the 1989 Seattle box set for Metallica's when they did their live shit Binge and Purge. And we're doing the Master of Puppets from that, so let's go check it out. Oh, and before I say that, before we get into it, I must say we are going to be pausing a lot and we are going to be chopping it, so you won't get to see the whole song, but we will of course watch the whole song. But unfortunately we have to do that for YouTube copyright issues. Let's go do it. I am going to pause at this point because I just want to talk a little bit about that intro.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think. We know about these dynamic impacts like bam, 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 bam. We hear stuff like that in other bands, but I'm trying to think of bands pre-Metallica or pre-Master of Puppets that did that style of dynamic, intense intros. I don't remember any bands that I can think of. If I think about the thrash bands and stuff, or the heavy metal bands so I'm thinking like the bands that they toured with in the early days, like Raven and stuff like that. They were all kind of pretty much straight getting into the track. It was always just a count in, a riff. I don't remember anyone doing that kind of intro build up where they kind of gave that intensity and got the crowd going. I don't know if anyone else can give any ideas of other bands that did it before that.
I think Slayer, Hell Awaits. When was that? That's 1985, isn't it? They're certainly doing that. I mean, What would that a band who come up now who are like precursors to thrash? That Canadian heavy metal band, Exciter. I've never heard their material. I know you mentioned Raven there. Raven are English, aren't they, Dave?
They are, yeah. So
Yeah.
they used to headline when Metallica first started, and Metallica supported them on tour in like 82, 83, that sort of era.
Yeah,
But they were much more kind of classic metal with a bit of thrash in there. Because I mean, if you're looking at all the bands that Metallica kind of were influenced by, with the bands like Diamond Head and Motorhead and those sort of bands, you don't hear any of them doing this sort of dynamic punctuations kicking in. And I can't think of anyone. I'm trying to think of also of like Ride the Lightning. On Ride the Lightning, did we have much of it? What songs were on there that had that same thing?
probably not. Ride the Lightning, Creeping Death, and they're not doing. It's not got that dramatic staccato.
Maybe
like,
Creeping Death,
sound,
but this was a bit more. This was just taking it to another level.
Yeah, I mean, Megadeth were certainly doing this, weren't they? When you listen to their 1986 album, "Peace Sells, but Who's Buying?"
Yeah, and it's interesting, obviously, because the Dave Mustaine, because he didn't have any credits on Master, but he obviously had credits on Ride the Lightning and of course Kill 'Em All. So he was still very much an influence on what the guys were writing and the stylization. So yeah, okay. No, I just couldn't think. That was the first thing I've just thought about. I'm like, I don't remember any music that I've owned from bands pre Master of Puppets that had this sort of ferocity and dynamic impact on that beginning. And maybe that's part of one of the reasons why this song is held that way, because it set the benchmark for what everyone else needed, or they set the bar for what everyone else needed to raise to in their writing.
So that technique has certainly been carried forward by sort of Bay Area thrash bands from late 80s, early 90s. You know, as you say, Kurt, the staccato, perhaps a single guitar punctuated by the drums and the other guitar sort of doing the what's the word? I can't think of the phrase, but yeah, it's certainly trend setting, you know, genre setting this particular song.
Okay, let's go through the verse and first chorus then. I do want to pause there before we go through that rest of the chorus, because it got me thinking, listening to that first verse, about the different time signatures and the changes. And again, thrash bands at the time were all very much 4/4, power through to the chorus, maybe half time it. It's the dynamic punctuations of the bam bam ba 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 da da ba ba. I just can't again think of any band before that was throwing that sort of complex songwriting in, and it is complex, even though it's not exactly the hardest riff. It's actually, if you didn't know it was coming and you were trying to write that's actually quite a hard thing to mentally plan ahead if you didn't know it already in advance. I don't know, Kirk.
Yeah, I would say Voivod would definitely taking thrash in a different direction to this, but by 1986, 87, they're just doing things, playing dissonant chords. Some of the drum timings are way out there. So yeah, you're right though. Metallica, you can hear the roots of "And Justice for All" in Master of Puppets. There's a prog influence creeping in, isn't there? And I know the question is, does this song stand up? And we'll discuss that at the end. I've got to say, the intro to this song, other than Holy War's Punishment G by Megadeth, you'll not find a better thrash metal song for an intro, in my opinion.
Okay. Any thoughts, Andy?
I'm just remembering how much I like the pre-chorus, the section you paused after. that's really good. You know, it's a great track. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not going to add too much in the way of, analysis regarding the sort of musical style and what they're doing and the songwriting techniques. It's just a great song, and that pre-chorus I particularly like in this. And again, echoing what you said, Kirk, the intro is fantastic as well, and almost unique, as you said, Dave. Not something that we'd heard before.
Do you know what? I also I was trying to think about one of the reasons why something might be a classic metal album or classic metal song, for instance, is if it is then emulated or borrowed from by other bands afterwards. Because when I'm listening to this, I can't hear the DNA of other songs in it in sense of songs that they borrowed from. But I can hear when I listen to other bands, like some of the Machine Head stuff, I can kind of hear and go, I can hear some Battery in there, and I can hear. You can go through later metal bands and hear the Metallica influence. When I listen to this, I can't hear the influences of the bands that influence them. I can hear it feels more like it's a trendsetter, and it's more on their own. And that's probably one where some of these classics, when it's a classic metal album, it's its own entity, but it influences so many others. But it's not as influenced by other people. Don't know if that makes complete sense or complete bollocks. I'm not sure. One way or the other.
Yeah, no, it does, because thrash metal, when Metallica released Kill 'Em All in 1983, thrash metal isn't really a thing, is it? It's still evolving. And 86 is the great year for thrash metal, isn't it? You get Rain in Blood by Slayer, you get Megadeth, Peace Sells But Who's Buying, and you get Master of Puppets by Metallica all in one year. You could argue that was the high point. I know this is 1989, but you're right. You don't hear Venom, you don't hear Motorhead, you don't even hear King Diamond, Merciful Fate, any of these bands. By the time Metallica get to Master of Puppets, they are creating or perfecting a genre that's still in transition, aren't they?
Yeah. Let's keep going. Go. Last pause before we go to the midsection, because obviously we don't need to dissect again afterwards about the verse, but I'm curious about thoughts around the choruses. I've always gone first on this one, so I'm gonna throw to Andy. Any initial thoughts around kind of what you feel when you listen to that chorus?
Well, it's a great chorus for the crowd to get involved with and sing back to you as the band. It doesn't always work on every song that a band might play as a live staple track, but this one certainly does work. And I mean, what a greater feeling as a musician to have that.
Okay.
The good thing is you're editing it anyway, Dave, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah, I'll work it out. So hang on. 3, 2, I'll just kick straight in back in again. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, so apologies there. We just had a power failure and we're back. I had just asked Andy about his thoughts about the chorus of obviously Master of Puppets. Over back to you, Andy.
Am I recapping what I said before?
Yeah, because that's as far as I got. I asked you that and then I disappeared. Sorry.
I can't remember.
Think about downpicking, you apparently told me.
No, that was
Kurt, we were talking off camera about Hetfield's technique at playing this particular part of the song, but I'll let Kirk elaborate on that. I was just saying when you know a song so well, you can almost hear it in your mind before you see and hear it, on the video or the concert in this case. And there was a particular line in the chorus where he kind of didn't deliver it in the way he would normally. He kind of held back, and it just sort of stands out a little bit for me. And it's sometimes a bit disappointing when that happens, but vocalists take that choice, or the reason for doing that, but it just sort of a bit sticks out a little bit, as if you know the song so well. That's all I was saying about the chorus.
I wonder when they wrote this, did they think about that master bit? With their master, did they think that was going to be a crowd?
Yeah, element? That's what I was saying as well. The fact that it's a sing-along chorus, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because I'm trying to think of on any of the other previous songs on Whiplash, Motor Breath.
I'd
I
imagine
suppose
the
they
crowd
do.
shout
Seek and
Whiplash
Destroy.
at the end of the line, don't they?
Well, Seek and Destroy was the one that they did. So they'd already got a song out there that had a crowd sing along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, For Whom the Bell Tolls was that, surely, wasn't it? Sing along.
yeah, so they had For Whom the Bell Tolls. They've got Seek and Destroy. So yeah, they would have been well aware of the power of that for crowd. So I think they probably did write that with that in mind. But it's amazing when you look at the track and even the choruses and the pre-chorus, just the amount of fills that are going on the drums. It's like every couple of bars, he's got a fill going. And it's a shame that people give Lars so much shit for his drum playing. So I think he's a great drummer. He's just a very natural player, so he can have his tempos up and down, but that's just natural push and pull. I think people just give him a lot of shit for it, but I think he's a great drummer in his writing. He writes great drum parts. Maybe not so much on St. Anger, but it was he's allowed to have a bad album.
Don't he throw in a few riffs as well? We're talking about Lars. Don't he pick up the old guitar and throw in a few riffs?
He can do. I don't know how much of that he actually does, but I'm sure he can. Anything from you, Kirk, before we carry on?
Yeah, to me, if I always, when I listen to this, I think this gives Hetfield some respite. You know, the chorus, because he can just stop the down picking and just play ringing chords and project his voice. So this is probably one of the more enjoyable moments in the song for him, because it must be a stressful song to play. I mean, look how he's holding his guitar and how low down it is. It's unnatural to be curving your arm like that and then down picking that intro riff. That's what makes us incredulous when we watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great chorus. That was your question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sing along, stand out. And this is really the voice. This is as tuneful as a voice can go in metal before it goes really extreme, isn't it? He took it husky as far as it can go, really, before after that you start to get more distortion in the voice. So I think
very natural.
Let's not forget this time he was a great vocalist as well, I would say.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's go up to the midsection next. Visual that is. Just people there watching music, getting into it. Anyway, let's move on.
1989.
Okay, so we're about to go into obviously the clean section. Was this the first song that they did in Metallica where they actually did this sort of clean section? I'm trying to think of. We'd obviously had Fade to Black, where it went heavy at the end. I'm trying to think on the previous two albums if there'd been anything. Well, there definitely wasn't anything on Kill 'Em All, but I don't remember anything on. There wasn't anything on Trapped Under Ice or anything like that. So
I don't think we'd ever had a reset like this until this album, where it goes like, I know we use the word clean. To me, you could argue this is, look at the influence this has had even on bands like Opeth. This is probably the start of progressive metal, thrash metal. And they didn't know it at the time because they were becoming Metallica, weren't they? They had their own sound even as early as Kill 'Em All, to be fair. But yeah, I don't think they had done anything like this. This again would have been, it's exhilarating, the song, isn't it? And then you get this moment, which stands out to me as well. It just shows,
it
shows as well, great musicianship. I think people started to take heavy metal serious because of songs like this.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I think what you point out there is it's the fact that nowadays it's a common practice to have a heavy section and then go to a clean section, back to a heavy section. We just did Decline the Fall. And what did they do? Heavy section. They did a nice clean bit in the middle, heavy bit. We did Sol Negra. We did the album. There was lots of atmospheric heavies. Then it was a clean bit. Then it went back to heavy. It's a very much became quite standardized. And I'm trying to think pre 85 within the metal genre. Now, you might have probably in new wave of British heavy metal, there would have been maybe elements of this within bands like Iron Maiden. I'm trying to think because you're talking what Run to the Hills was what 83, 84.
Well, I mean, the Ancient Mariner has it's an 11-minute song or whatever, but that has a very similar sort of calm, clean reset, to use your word, Kirk, right in the middle. And then the song builds and builds and then goes to its conclusion.
Yeah.
So that would have been slightly earlier than this, yeah.
So there's an element of the classic.
84 Power Slave album, yeah.
Well, Angel Witch on that 1980 album have got some of these moments in, haven't they, as well?
And we know that Lars was a big new wave of British heavy metal fan, so there might be that sort of influence that he's brought into this particular style. But definitely within the core metal of what we would say is like the thrash bands, and you've got bands obviously over on the other side of like Sepultura at this time. No one was going down this sort of route of within the heavier groups doing this sort of thing where they had that midsection break. I'm trying to think of even with Megadeth, what Megadeth were doing at this point in time.
Could I just raise a question about the vocal delivery again?
Yeah.
What I said before, where Hetfield kind of held back on one of the lines. Again, that last sort of pre-chorus and chorus, all right, the crowd done some of it, but he delivered some of the lines differently. Now, when you see a band play live and they play their anthemic songs like this, do you want them to be faithful to the originals, or are you happy with the vocalist perhaps putting a spin on some of the lines, just breaking up a bit?
I personally have no problem with that, as long as it sounds good. I think it's when they try and do it and it's like off key or. So I was actually going to say about this so far, I love his vocal delivery. I the intensity about how he's delivering it as well.
Oh yeah, genuinely it is. But there are a few lines like he's either holding back or delivering it slightly different, and it does. If you know the song so well, you think, oh, that sounds a bit different. You kind of detracts you from, what you're listening to.
It might be.
I'm happy with it, but as you said, it needs to be an improvement. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't want to be something that's attempted but misses the mark and fails. You've got to be sure. Either stick to how it sounds on the recording, or make sure you nail it, because
I think there's an element of the higher note. So it's usually with the artist, because there's a few bits on the chorus when he goes up higher.
Yeah.
And that's probably gonna, if he's thinking he's got a 2 hours gig that night, he can't go that, so he goes lower instead. And I've seen that with some other vocalists, a lot of pop vocalists as well. They'll do an alternative line. Instead of going up, they'll go lower, and go for the lower key instead, just because it won't blow their voice out on the gig.
See, I want it to be as faithful as possible. I'll give you an example. If you see a Depeche Mode concert live, when they play that song Stripped and Dave Gahan is giving a microphone to the crowd, that is criminal. I mean, that chorus makes the song. What the fuck are you doing? Saying, sing it. You missed the best part of the song. So there's certain bands that you just know wouldn't be able to do a chorus. Like, I know they're not a rock or metal band, but like Duran Duran, Simon Le Bon can just not sing at that level now anyway. The older you get, you're not going to be able to sing. It was already unnatural, like Wild Boys, which is let's be honest, crap song anyway. But I mean, how bad does that sound at Live Aid in 1985? So can you imagine him trying to do that now? Whereas with this, I think with heavy guitar music, you're probably going to be more pissed off if they're not being faithful to the guitar riffing.
Yeah.
But yeah, certain music, Andy, I'm with you. It has to be. You've got to. There's nothing wrong with occasionally letting the crowd sing it. Don't give a whole chorus to the crowd with a microphone, because that just ruins the song.
I think a lot of bands do that now, though. We are seeing that. I'll give you an example of a band which where it's gone too bad, where they still try and sing something and it doesn't sound right. Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer, Singing It Now. Guy can't sing it anymore. His voice is buggered. John Bon Jovi really does struggle with a lot of his register. He's got a very limited range now. So There's no way he can do the whoa,
especially going up an octave.
He just goes, he puts it out there for the whoa, and he always sings. He sings it lower now, and his voice is just shot. And now that's a case of he's having to make a change on it, but I don't think it works. And at that point, you kind of go, if you can't do that song, you're not going to drop it from the set, I guess. But it's disappointing to watch it, no matter what he does, because it's such an anthemic song. So.
Classic example of that, Dave. Jason Newsted connection here. Flotsam and Jetsam, Arizona, thrash band. Their album, I think it was 88, No Place for Disgrace. The vocals on that are sensational. Really high notes. A.D.K, Eric Knutson, phenomenal vocalist on that album. They re-recorded it probably early 2000s. And again, the song so well, they've done like a re-recording of it, and his vocal delivery, he's reined it in big time because he's not going to hit those notes, and it still works. And I guess that is a sort of indication of what the live performance would be of those particular songs. But as you say, Kirk, that's due to the advancements of age. It happens to us all. So fair play to these guys for carrying on, but it's a shame that it can't be delivered. John Bon Jovi, Simon Le Bon. It's a shame we can't see them now singing these songs as they did 40 years ago, whatever it is.
Bruce Dickinson still does quite a good job, though, doesn't he? And same with Halford. I mean, they're still.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're 100% worthy. They're not where they were 20 years ago, but it's still a very strong performance, isn't it? Live, when you see them, they're still hitting the notes.
Right. Let's go through the midsection. Just got to pause it, and then we'll do the final outro section of the whole song and solos, etc. Okay, round the room, thoughts around this whole midsection. So, not just about if you really like it, really don't like it, etc. But and obviously because it's a live performance, I'm sure I know I've got a commentary about the shrillness of the guitar sound, but it's more a case of about it being a classic metal track. So, I'm kind of trying to put my head into like the thought process of James, Lars, Jason, and Cliff at the time, I guess, because I think Cliff had quite an impact on writing this particular track. But I'm just trying to think of where this part of the song came from. So, Andy, where's your head on this?
My thoughts are that this shows, the high musicianship and songwriting of these guys at the time. We mentioned, we used the phrase trend setting earlier. They're sort of, and you said, Kirk, I think it's about the time when people started taking heavy metal seriously, because it's not just thrashing away at power chords and fast drumming and screaming vocals. This is, whoa, these guys can play. That they can create music that's got the appeal of not just sort of heavy metal fans, and it's sort of just showing the diversity of what they can do with a song. You touched on it, Dave, as well. We said about, do the vocals need to be faithful to the recorded version? We were split on the opinions there. I think, and Kirk, you said, you expect the guitars to be, and there's a few off notes there, and it didn't sound quite, shrill was your word, Dave. So, nobody's perfect. We're all human and everything, but that particular passage just shows how good Metallica are and were even back then.
Yeah. Kirk?
First time I heard this, I associated this part with the album artwork. You do feel like you're in a military cemetery, don't you? And that is such a powerful emotion to convey in a genre that's known for hyper-aggression. And yeah, this changed rock music, not just metal or the subgenre of thrash. And it really annoys me. You know, when, like you mentioned, Rolling Stone, they'll do the top 100 albums, and you can only have one band per entry, so you can guess what's going to be in. I think this album is still seen as a bit too extreme to be the one Metallica entry. Whenever you see these mainstream top 100, it's always the Black Album, isn't it? And the fact that there's so much risk taking in this music, when you put it in context, 1986, most people's concept of heavy metal is the crap that's coming out of Sunset Boulevard, isn't it? You know, Poison and bands like that. That's what MTV are playing. Metallica make a conscious decision, we don't want to be part of this. And you don't get the first video until one in 1989. 88, sorry. But this just blows me away. It's one of the few times where I just listen to it and I just have the album artwork in my head when I hear this part. It is so vivid. Incredible achievement to put this in such a heavy song. And one final point, listen to the transition, how they go back into distortion. That's clearly influenced by classical music. You know, they've been listening to Wagner to go from quiet levels and then to really bring it up again. So that's another reason why critics are starting to pay attention now to this music.
Okay. So I started listening to this and I was just trying to think in my head, apart from obviously the shrillness of the live guitars, which it just didn't sound quite right compared to the album cover. The album, I mean, it's not the first time I've heard a live performance Metallica on this particular part of the song, and it sounded a bit shrill. And it's interesting that when you hear them on the Black Album, and they toured on the Black Album, Master of Puppets never had the mid section. They used to play up to the mid, and a lot of time they would finish either there or they would do some transition into the outro. So they used to skip that whole shrill section.
Oh, wow.
And they made that decision. So I know I saw them a couple of times live, and they never played the mid, and then they played it at a later show. So I think on the Load tour they didn't do it on the Load tour. And you know what? I was listening to it and I was trying to think about what does it add to the song. And it's a lovely passage piece, but then I was just kind of going, if I was thinking about how you wrote that song and it goes, did it, master, and you could have easily gone into the dun 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 dun. You could have easily transitioned from the end of the chorus into that part of the song. So they've added this middle bit, and I'm not sure if it adds. And I actually just picked the word indulgent in there because it is an indulgent piece to put in, because I'm not sure what it's doing in the song. I'm not saying this, but I actually really enjoy it as part of the song, but I can't, now that I'm being really analytical about it and taking myself away from the emotional element. I'm just trying to look at it as purely as a written piece of music and go, I'm not sure what its purpose is.
It's like what I said. It's showcasing their songwriting and musicianship.
Yeah.
Isn't it? They say it might be superfluous, and it's interesting you say that it was sort of excluded from some live performances and some tours. You know, I didn't know that. But I can see how what you said, how it could transition from the echoing of master, and then back into the outro part without that section. I can see how that works as well. So maybe this was maybe that was the original format, and this was kind of an afterthought and inserted, later on in the writing process.
So I like, and a lot of the time, obviously, when they're thinking about the songs, they're trying to think of the emotional journey that the listener's going on. So there's obviously this piece is got an emotion. Now we're talking about drug addiction here, being the song. So is this meant to be the calm of the kick in the addiction? Is this meant to be? There's an emotional element. I'm sure James, when he was writing this song and he had the lyrics and he had the songwriting, there was a purpose behind it that he's trying to convey in this music. I unfortunately don't know what it is, because obviously there's no lyrical element, and then obviously we're kicking back into the outro and the fight with this master of addiction, I guess. But it was just very interesting to suddenly sit back and stop listening to it as a fan of the song and just go, actually, just from a purely musical point of view and songwriting point of view, what purpose did this bit serve in the song. And the only thing I could think of was it was, as you said, it's showing off songwriting and a bit of indulgence in songwriting from a purely writing point of view. But I'm
I
going to
think
sound like a complete twat on this one and get
no,
slated in the comments for that. But
right up until the Black Album, the second guessing the listener, they like to do that, don't they, Metallica? I think that's one of the reasons why the later albums are not up to standard for me. I can't think of anything post Black Album that really second guesses the listener. It's probably because they'd invented so much, and there's only so much that you can do. But I don't think this is superfluous, this passage, and I'll just repeat, it's because it conveys the album artwork, and I feel like I'm transported to a military cemetery. So I think this is a sophisticated rest point in the song before they bring back the aggression.
Okay, let's go through. We've got the solo and then to the outro. Let's do it. There we go. Okay, Master of Puppets. We got there in the end. Right. So we've got the last section we can talk about, but also at the same time, I'd like just to give you final thoughts on the last section from the solo to the outro, but also a little summary about what it is about this song that makes this a classic or one of the greatest metal songs of all time. And to help you out, I'm going to go to Kirk first to give you time, Andy. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we're unanimous on this, but this song and Holy War's Punishment G by Megadeth define thrash metal for me. This song is flawless. If that was 60 minutes long, I would still enjoy it. I've always loved the guitar tone from this era of Metallica, and that is heavier than most guitars that are down tuned. It's proof that you do not need to drop tune your guitar to be heavy, because thrash metal really thrives on that friction, doesn't it, of the plectrum and the palm muting on the bridge of your guitar. Metallica are masters of that. Great song. Why is it a great song? You've got probably the most famous guitar intro in the genre of thrash metal. Great chorus. The surprise, I don't even call it a middle eight, because it's like they've transplanted another song into there with the part that to me conveys being in a military cemetery, and then the finale at the end. And then final thing I will say, the confidence in the band. I love when you get a song that's 8 minutes and then they end it by revisiting the verse in the last 2 minutes. That is a band that are just like, okay, we've made it to 6 minutes, we can do better than this, we can keep going and keep the listener engaged. So this will always be a desert island metal song for me. I would never tire of listening to this.
Okay, I'll throw it to Andy next.
Sort of summarising the whole song and sort of the last section that we saw, Dave, you pointed out how many feels Lars Ulrich is doing, and I was looking out for that, and it is quite impressive what he was doing there. James Hetfield, he has got an unnatural and almost uncomfortable looking stance, and when he's playing, and how low he has the guitar and what his forearm must be going through. So again, that's just a credit to him. Kirk Hammett nailed that solo. you know my thoughts on guitar solos, but I do love that solo. It's not self-indulgent. It complements the song. It's a great thrash guitar solo. And I don't think they should have given Jason Newsted the microphone. The master bit earlier on was terrible, and then what was he doing towards the end as well? There's no backing vocals on the album recording, so again, that's just sort of he's put his hand up and say, "Can I do a bit of backing vocals, guys?" You know, so I don't think that was necessary. But again, I'll probably get slated by Metallica fans for that.
Will.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great song. It's a classic song. It's not my Desert Island disc Metallica song. There's a couple that are ahead of that, but it's a great song on a great album, and I'll always remember it fondly as being one of my stepping stones from, you know, the likes of Iron Maiden and AC/DC. You know, Ride the Lightning was my first sort of thrash album, and I'm sure Master of Puppets sort of followed very shortly afterwards, without many in between. You know, might have had Slayer and Anthrax in there as well, but those early Metallica albums are always going to be very, very special to me. And not being a huge fan, I haven't seen many live recordings, but that was great. You know, if that's the whole concert, you know, I might be going out and looking out for that as well. But yeah, great song to bring to our attention, Dave, to analyse. Thank you very much.
It's kind of weird. Off that album, one of my favourite songs is The Thing That Should Not Be. Love that track. It's so twisted and dark and just
Doom.
Evil as hell. I love
Doom.
it. Doom.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, we should be talking about Master of Puppets. So, yeah, I mean, I think the reason for me... Actually, I'm going to address your Jason Newsted comment. Because I have to on this one. So yeah, I think everyone who's been a big fan of the live performances has always missed the fact of Jason not being in the band for his live performance, because the amount of energy he puts in, and obviously the backing vocals that he puts in for things like Master, it's well missed because Rob, bless him, can't deliver it to that same passion. And when they had Kirk doing it, Kirk could not do the Master section. I'm sorry, it just sounds awful. So it's really obvious when he's doing it. And they even allowed him to sing on certain songs like Whiplash. He was given opportunities to sing that as the actual main vocals. But if you are looking for album perfection, you're not going to get that from there. But you definitely got a lot of attitude and energy from Jason, and that is one thing that people really do miss about him not being in the band. As far as the song, the reason why this is for me is a classic metal album is it delivers so many different elements. It isn't a standard 4/4 verse chorus midsection double chorus at the end sort of thing. It's not that formulaic in the sense of every section has got these little changes. It's got little where these fills are finishing, they're not where you naturally feel they should finish. So once you've listened to this song, you know it's coming. But I know the very first time I heard Master of Puppets, and I tried to play along with it, I'm like, what? Hang on, why did that stop? Hang on, what? Hey, what's he doing? And you're like, my head just couldn't work it. Once you got one section right, you're like, okay, I got it now. Oh God, he's doing something different on this section. So from a drumming point of view, you were just like, what is Lars on at the moment? And of course, he took it to a whole new level on Justice. And then some people will say he went too far with it. And I think that they've even said on Justice for All, they went too far with it and maybe were trying to be too smart for their own good. And this was probably the early stages of that. But there is so many interesting elements. And I think you mentioned it there, Kirk, early on, the prog metal elements that you probably at the time would never even thought about it. And probably unless you analyze it like we've done, you probably wouldn't even consider talking about prog metal and Master of Puppets. But the fact that bands like Dream Theater play Master of Puppets as part of their live sets sometimes, you can understand why they do because of the complexity of it. So for me, I understand completely why it is classic, and it is definitely not a beer-goggled anthem that I stated at the beginning that it could be. So it definitely deserves its place as one of the greatest metal songs of all time. Now, if you watch it at home, if you like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and join us for another video sometime very soon. Take care.